In June, we invited our 2025 UWorld Cares grant winners to the Dallas headquarters to have a roundtable discussion around college readiness in order to get their perspectives on trends they are seeing in their organizations around student readiness, how they are partnering with schools and districts, and advice they have for improving pathways to college.
Well, welcome. I see familiar faces and also a lot of new faces. So welcome to UWorld. Welcome to UWorld family. And like JB said, we're going to be talking a little college readiness today because that is what I deal with. But I know a lot of the students that you serve are also on their college readiness journey. So I know at this point you are probably very familiar with UWorld and what we do. But this is just a nice little visual of all of the different verticals, industry, and students and teachers that we serve. I like to say that UWorld is in the opportunity business. We really try and empower learners and instructors to excel in whatever they're doing. And like you heard downstairs, we started over 20 years ago because our CEO was studying for the USMLE and couldn't find materials that were affordable or effective. So he just made his own. And that's kind of that were the very humble beginnings of UWorld. But now we're not so, we're still humble in ways, but we try to stay humble. But now we serve over 4 million students across the globe. So we are quite impactful. And several years ago, we started serving high school and middle school students. So essentially what we do is we make really hard stuff easy to understand. And of course, servicing high school and middle school students, we have 2 verticals specifically dedicated to just that. Our college prep and our college readiness. The only difference between the 2 is one is selling directly to students. The other is selling into schools and districts to support students. But that is why many of you are here today, because that is also the populations that you serve. And being on the front lines of a lot of these students' journeys into college and career, we want to get your feedback. We want to hear what you're seeing, what you're hearing from students, the challenges that students are facing, the challenges that you all are facing, because a lot is changing in education. It always is, but especially right now, there's some big upheavals. So we want to hear about your perspectives, and we appreciate everything that you guys bring to the table, and it's an opportunity for you to share with one another, kind of validate one another. We want to hear how we can better serve you, and also because I deal with schools and districts, we want to share some of this information with them too, and how they can partner better with you and how you can collaborate more and help serve these students. I wanted to set the stage a little bit. So this is just, and most of you are going to be very familiar with this because again, these are the students that you all serve. But these are some of the trends that we're seeing, both directly with students and with the schools and districts that we work with. So we know post-COVID or during COVID, a lot of colleges and universities went test optional. That was largely because a lot of students couldn't even get into testing centers to take the SAT and ACT. There was a lot of hoopla around it because it was like, oh, this is great. Students don't have to take this test anymore. There's been some wavering back and forth on that. We know that no test, no single individual test is perfect. We know it's going to have flaws. We know there's going to be bias involved. But largely speaking, it's still the best equal playing field indicator of college readiness. Even though it has imperfections, it's the same thing. All students take the same exact test. It's a little bit different than the grades and the GPAs that students may get. So it's still around. Test optional is still around, but many of the top universities in the country have gone back to requiring the exam. It's still valued. It's still valued for scholarships. It's still valued for placement. But of course, those equity concerns still persist. We also have a switch from the traditional paper and pen method of taking the SAT exam to now fully digital SAT exam, along with a lot of other changes. It's adaptive, it's shorter. There's some changes to the content that are being tested. And of course, as ACT and College Board does one thing and the other one waits around and see what happens, and then they usually follow suit. So now ACT is going digital this year as well. Key concern now that, this has always been a concern, if students don't have access to good prep, they are at a disadvantage. Well, now we have a new kind of test, and a lot of the prep that is existing out there is not a new prep. It is still prepping students for the paper and pencil version of the exam. So we want to make sure that students not only have good prep for the new exam, but they have the technology to do that prep online, because that's the format that they're going to take it in. AP trends. So there, again, we see a major transition to a digital exam. This was the first year, this May was the first year that a whole lot of exams went completely digital. We saw a lot of exam changes in the sciences. College Board recalibrated their scoring. Also, College Board is rolling out new career-focused AP courses, which is really interesting. We know we were just speaking, David, about how not all students are college-bound. And this is a response to that. Students that want to go directly into a career or into a trade, they are now releasing AP courses that end in a certification instead of college credits. So cybersecurity, networking, anatomy and physiology, and business and finance. We know that AP students, many underrepresented groups are still missing. They are still not performing as well as other groups, so that is still a concern. And now we have this really big tension between AP and programs like dual credit and dual enrollment. The big benefit for students there is, in their mind, they don't have to take a culminating exam. And that's a huge amount of stress off of them. That's also cost that they don't have to worry about, because the exam prep, it costs money. But we're also finding out that a lot of those programs, because there is no oversight on them, they're not preparing students for the rigor of college. And also, there a lot of colleges, they have to partner, school districts have to partner with a local college, and so it doesn't necessarily transfer to a college out of state or out of the area if they're doing those programs. So we're seeing a lot of changes. We know that there are still issues that exist, and we want to do our best to try and support students and support schools and districts with dealing with some of these challenges. And of course, schools are under a tremendous amount of pressure right now. We know that there has been a lot of upheaval, starting with the fiscal cliff. The end of ESSER funds, which were a huge boon to school and districts, has ended. And so a lot of them were already seeing a shortfall in funding. But then, of course, with the Department of Ed going away, there is a lot of fear. Haven't seen a ton of impact yet, but just the fear of what might happen is really starting to impact how schools and districts are operating. We're seeing staff shortages. That's been going on since COVID. There's teacher shortages. There's counseling gaps. There's not enough counselors to go around. Schools are closing. We've seen that even here in the area. A lot of schools are getting shut down. And that also rolls down into program reductions. So they're looking at where they can cut funding and cut costs. And some of the nice to have, not have to have programs are the first to go. And sometimes that's college readiness. So sometimes that could be the SAT or the ACT programs, prep programs that they've been providing, or classes or tutoring. So that's really causing complications in the K-12 world. Of course, all of these things hit underserved communities the worst. And then we're seeing testing and curriculum shifts, and this is really hard on teachers. So as we're seeing a lot of teacher attrition, we have a lot of new teachers coming into roles, especially a lot of novice teachers going into teaching AP, which is difficult because they're difficult classes to teach. You have to have a really good handle on the content, but you also have to manage getting in a ton of information before the exam, and the exam happens before the school year is out. So it is very stressful on teachers, and you have these new teachers coming into these positions, And then the College Board is making all these changes to the curriculum and the exams. So they're having to scramble trying to figure out what to do, how to stay on top of things, and how to meet the needs of very diverse learners. More and more schools are going open enrollment for AP, and that means any students that want to participate, which is great, but that also means that teachers now have students that have a variety of skills and may be missing a lot of skills that they need to succeed in those classes. So it is definitely a tough landscape. There are a lot of challenges, and I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know and that you're not already seeing and feeling in your organizations. So that leads us to your role and wanting to hear, in the context of all of these challenges, what you guys are seeing on the ground. Again, you're on the front lines. You have direct contact with students, communities, parents, and schools and districts. So it's really important to us to hear your voices and hear what's going on in your organizations and how we can partner with you and support you better. So we'll get right into the questions. So this is all about the first set of questions about student needs and trends. So the big thing is, are students still interested in going to college? Are you seeing a shift to more career-focused pathways? And what is happening with the students that you're serving?
Can I just address that in terms of like some of the other things that you just mentioned? Because I think one thing on those beginnings that isn't mentioned that's really important to me is the fact that not only are all those things as far as preparation for college going away, college is going away because our scholars can, I mean, we don't guarantee, but we really work with them to get debt-free college. Undocumented students are paying, I don't know if they're going to have to pay out of state or out of the country tuition.
No, yeah.
If they have to pay that, are they going to go? If my scholars that are here, if that, the bill just, the big beautiful bill just, thank goodness, took out the requirement for 15 hours a semester, but most of my scholars work. So they take 12 hours a semester, which means that $7,400 a year gets cut to $5,500. They took that out, but there's still the proposal that we're going to reduce Pell Grants by 23%, which cuts that down to $5,500. A college education is $26,000 a year. So to answer this question, I don't know that it's not that they're not interested. Is it available?
Yeah, there's too many barriers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, the other barrier I was going to add on there too that we definitely see is just, the lack of Wi-Fi and internet availability at home, or like during the summer they like it for test prep. So like you have a district issued laptop for your schoolwork during the school year, but what do you do during the summer when you don't have that? So to help with the summer learning gap in general, and then all the college prep.
Yeah.
So.
How do you think? Obviously, we want multiple pathways for students because we know students need other pathways. Not all students can go to college. Not all students want to go to college. But the more and more we see numbers of students declining going to college, how do you think that will play out? What do you think the long-term impact is of not as many college goers, not as many college graduates?
Go ahead. I would say for us, we have a lot of kids that are interested in college. They're also interested in trade. We do exposure to both. But some of our students, and I've had a couple tell me, my parents have been successful without going to college. And these are the things that they've done in the past that they followed. And they think that, okay, I don't need this. I can do the same path, right? Sometimes that's not true for everyone because the climate that we're in is all changing, and things that are, that they're going to need or want are going to be a lot more expensive. And so it's not going to work the same. But it's also about the parents understanding kind of how the process works. Those parents didn't go to school. Those parents were never enrolled in school. It wasn't something that was told this is something you need. So they're not providing that same foundation to their kids because they don't understand it.
Yeah. And I think going off that, the problem we've had is with the kids that are going to college, they're quitting because they don't have this important when they're in college. So it's very different when you're living at home and you have your parents right there, your siblings, your friends around you. But going to college is a drastic change, especially if you're going out of to the state or far away from the house, And that's where we've seen a lot of disruptions. That support, that emotional support is not there. Yes, they might be used to handling their own schedule and their own homework and everything, but then they're like, who do I go to after? And that's where a lot of the disconnection, the networking part, that's so big. I mean, I'd say to my teens, they're attached to their cell phones. It's like, how do you have face-to-face conversations? So, yeah.
So do you feel like that is a result of just the individuals just being more isolated, not...
I think it's a mix of everything.
Yeah.
I think we push for college so much, which is not bad, right? It's a great path. The problem is, what resources are we providing after they go to college? And yes, we provide resources here, but how can we make sure that we're continuing those resources or giving them the keys, maybe connecting them with someone at their local college or where they're going that can help them with that transition?
Right. Because not everybody adapts well to that.
We had a young lady that went to freshman orientation last week. And at the orientation, there was 200 kids, and she was the only person of color in that entire group of 200. And she literally looked at her parents and was like, I don't think I can be here. There's no one here that looks like me. Wow. There's no one here that is going to come from where I come from. Is this something that I can do by myself? And it took until leaders of other group organizations came in to talk, and she was like, okay, there are people here that look like me. It was a fear for her that she's going to be different on campus and not be able to make those friends, and you just graduated. It's like, I'm in culture shock. What am I about to do with myself?
The other thing that I am always challenged with, I know that these early colleges, I know that they help some. I also have scholars. I've got one right now who's going through an appeals process because she's run out of funding. Because she went through 2 years in a health program in high school and got into college, and who in here as a junior or as a freshman knew exactly what they wanted to be? Who kept that pathway? And so they're entering freshman year as a junior with 2 years of credits, and now they have to hit that ground running and know exactly what they want to do. And when they change, the financial aid runs out. And so now she has got a year and a half left as an accounting major and has no funding and has to pay full cost for the college unless this appeal goes through. So I think the other thing that I am trying to figure out, when we started, I think probably many of us in here, everybody was like, go to college, go to college, go to college. Okay, what happens when you get to college? So then it's like, oh yeah, we got to get them through college. And there's a financial thing for that. There's a networking piece for that. And now it's like, what do I do when they get out of college? Because we have college grads who are driving Uber because they got out, but they don't have the same networks that the wealth has to say, or the confidence, it's like, I'm out here now and I got to go to this interview. And we prep them with interviewing skills and all of that, but there's still that, now I'm out in this big world and I don't know what to do with that. So how do we equip them with that knowledge of, of career understanding, and do I like healthcare or do I not like healthcare? I mean, I want to be a doctor. Do I even like science? That kind of thing. But then beyond that, connecting them somehow into that internship, into that, and the knowledge that also our scholars or our first-gen students don't get, that you apply for an internship in November for the next summer. Yeah. Not in May. So there's all of those different things that impact our first-gen students that are understood or equipped by a family who's in that, all the time. And then, so it puts our scholars at a disadvantage.
Yeah. A lot of complexity. Okay, well, next question. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but just further, is there anything that we've missed in the conversation so far in terms of barriers to college? Anything that we haven't mentioned?
I'll just say, I'm Brian with CIS Dallas. Pretty much we provide communities of support for students in schools to help them achieve in school and in life afterwards. And so I think for the first question and now this one, a lot of our students that we come to interaction with on a daily basis They know that college is an option. They know that post-secondary success have options, but they don't even know if they are ready or prepared to graduate, right? I think a lot of the students that we serve primarily is they say, oh, I know college is a thing. I know trade school and trade options are an opportunity. But if you go to their teachers, they would say, oh, well, Joe's, he may not make it out of this grade, or Samantha, this is her second time in this particular classroom. And so you think that education, middle school and high school, obviously is one of the reasons why we're here today, but just they need more preparation to get out of high school, because they have so many other barriers, whether it's, at home barriers with transportation or food malnourishment or health issues. Students now and everyone now, I think we're so concerned with so many other aspects of our lives that we even forget that we have to maintain a certain standard to even achieve in one level, high school, to get to the next level of, let alone college and career prep, but then actually going into that first semester and saying, oh, I have a full caseload that I have to manage by myself, or I have to buy books and I only have this Pell Grant or this amount of money for X, Y, and Z with food, with transportation, with books and internet and all these other communication and media costs that are necessary to be successful in school. And so I think that all these barriers are big when presented because they all deter a life or a plan in a certain way for these students. So I can't even say, oh yeah, transportation is a big issue, because if it's transportation, I can guarantee you that finances is another issue, or housing is a next issue, or worrying about, am I going to eat today? As opposed to, man, did my baby brother eat today? In those type of situations. So as hopeful as I am that we'll be in a space to say that every high school graduate has an opportunity to choose a path to success, whether that's trade or college or a career or what have you, I think that there are so many barriers that we're all trying to combat in a way to say that all of them are big in each of their individual situations. And it's what can we do now to support them in a sense to where they can make a decision to go to a 2-year or a 4-year or a trade school. And I think, speaking for the room, but more so for myself, this is the predicament that we're in, especially with the funding crisis that's going on, because we don't know which barrier to attack first. And the more that we attack, the more that arise seemingly. So that's my spiel for now.
And we know it's not as simple as just saying, oh, well, we need to support high school students better. It goes back to what's happening in elementary school, what's happening, they have access to pre-K, what's happening from the moment that they're born, that they are getting the supports and the resources that they need to. I mean, it is in no way a simple answer to anything.
I mean, go ahead.
I'd also like to add that just one of the other barriers we're seeing is that, okay, maybe they make the decision to go to college, but there are even more barriers to pursuing like a degree in STEM. The degrees that we see create the highest income. That if you're coming from a low-income background, you're less likely to go be an electrical engineer or take on a degree in that way. And we're finding when we have done surveys with our club kids that's, they don't see people like them in those roles. They don't see mentors in those roles. They're very intimidating. Maybe they had the support they needed to do well in English class, but maybe they didn't have the support they needed to do well in biochem. And so they say, to heck with it, I'm going to go into a softer major, which is still a good choice. It's a step in the right direction, but maybe selling themselves short because they could have gone and done something where in 4 years now they're coming out and making 150 or whatever it is in one of those fields. And so we're looking at mentorship as a solution for that. We're looking at programs like what UWorld offers to make sure that they feel like they can master those very challenging subjects that are very intimidating. And hopefully that will get them to be exposed to those STEM fields and actually have the confidence and the ability to go and pursue one of those degrees.
Yeah. Okay, last question about student needs and trends. We have also hit on this quite a bit, but do you feel students are leaving high school truly ready for college? And again, both academically and just life skills. Are they emotionally ready? And we're saying,
I think it depends on the high school. Yeah. So, and that's unfortunate. So yeah, I mean, that's the short answer. It depends on high school and the resources and what they've been exposed to on a day in and day out, the counseling staff, the connections the high school has, the reputation of the school. Yeah, I mean, if you're at Townview Tag, you're going to be college ready. If you're in an IB school and you went through the IB program, you're going to be college ready. But, you know, if you went somewhere where there's not a lot of AP offerings or college readiness types of courses, or even just the expectations and the level of rigor that you're exposed to on a day in and day out basis, like they're just not going to be ready. Yeah, they just aren't. And that's just a fact. And it's really sad, but I think it all depends on the school.
Yeah. I think it also depends too on their families and the expectations of the families.
Right.
Did they support higher education and did they encourage that?
But even in that, like my background, I was a first generation. Like my family was like, you ain't going to school, you ain't doing this, like you're going to be here and you're going to work and you're going to pull your weight. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a home support network. And there are plenty of people who were like me who didn't have that, but you had a made up mind, like, no, that's not going to be me. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's family, but fortunately I had excellent teachers. Even though my school was not well resourced, I had excellent teachers who went above and beyond to expose me to things. And that's why I say the school really is like that community that can really be a game changer.
As well as all of our nonprofits, as we invest in these kids,
Right. About that.
and show them other ways of doing things. Exactly.
Somebody's got to be the advocate.
Right.
There's home, school, you guys, somebody's got to be the advocate.
Because we have an Upward Bound program within our organization that serves within our school districts, outside school districts. And so our kids that have participated in that program are absolutely, truly ready. They have support through the 4 years of school, and they even have support the year after they graduate because our caseworkers are still following them through the process. What are you doing? You've graduated. Let's talk about career options and how are you doing this? But those kids have invested themselves, like you stated. They wanted something. They had the opportunity. Their school had these. Some of those kids don't even know that there's ghost centers in their schools. They're finding out senior year, there's a ghost center here. It's been here for 4 years. They don't know these things because nobody's told them that. And some of them, honestly, they're still struggling to read. Yeah. And the ones that are struggling to read in high school are not going to be able to read or do any of the college social work. They're going to struggle even more, and their confidence is just not going to be there to be truly ready for what's going to be expected when they leave on that campus in the fall.
Even a lot of the professors, right? There's been a lot of surveys that have come out, in recent years saying that the students who are coming in they're just not ready for these classes. The entry level, your English, they're just not performing. They can't keep up.
I think one of the things we're still seeing at the Boys and Girls Clubs is kids are still dealing with the aftermath of the pandemic. It's 4 or 5 years later. I'm almost getting tired of saying it myself. The pandemic. But, so many low-income kids could just not meaningfully participate in the virtual learning. And even though Texas pivoted away from that sooner than other states, it seems like that was an inflection point for kids not being able to read. And I had the isolation, some of the soft skills that did not develop. And some of those kids in the pandemic are now in college or in high school, and they're still dealing with those consequences. And so I think, we try to offer positive peer circles. Summer learning is actually a great time for accelerated learning. We do our summer brain gain program where we still make the summer program really fun. I know Rainbow Days does the same. Make it really, really fun, but sneak in as much learning and literacy as we can. And it used to be for us, pre-pandemic, summer and spring break was like a STEM themed. And we broadened it to STREAM, which is, includes art and reading, to try to just shoehorn more of that literacy into it to try to get kids where they need to be when they finish high school. And the latest STAR test results that came out very recently were encouraging, especially in the Dallas area, North Texas. It perked up a little bit. At least the trend is reversing. So I think the efforts that UWorld Cares and the people in this room are doing are making a difference. We just can't take our foot off the gas yet.
Yep. I think that is an amazing segue. I love how this is flowing. I don't even have to ask the next question. We just naturally get there. So we can reframe this a little bit, not just in the learning gaps that you're addressing, but the soft skill gaps that you're addressing. So how are your organizations just briefly, top level, helping with this?
Sure, I can jump in for the Thoreau Museum. So a lot of you in this room might have visited the museum. You know, we are an informal learning setting. We aren't to replace the classroom. We are to supplement for students to find, you know, discovery, spark curiosity, and really let them just find STEM career paths and STEAM as well. And so for us, we actually have a summer internship program for high school students. So that might be new for some of you in this room to hear, where, you know, these students across North Texas can apply. And it's not a merit-based program, so you don't have to have the highest GPA. You just have to have a passion for STEAM. And so what that looks like is once these students are selected in the morning, they have industry partners, you know, UWorld's, corporate partners in the STEM space come and do workshops for our teens and show, you know, there are a lot of different types of engineers. What is this company's focus on? You know, what is AI going to look like in 5 years after you graduate? And talk all about those. So they have one of those every single day of the program, and it's geared towards different and very specific career paths that they could maybe see themselves in. I think it's really important. We have a lot of diversity across, you know, not only race, but also career paths, and just making sure, you know, when they're sitting there listening to these industry partners, they see themselves in the room and, you know, in these executive positions that they could maybe be in and are totally achievable with the right resources. And then, you know, when after the workshop ends, they volunteer throughout the museum. So when you talk about, you know, growing those soft skills, you know, they're doing biology experiments with guests and their phones are away. They are, you know, greeting guests, they're wayfinding. Their goal is to put the skills that they just learned to the test. And they have that throughout the summer. And so it also kind of jumps back to the barrier as well. I think this program is only as good as who knows about it, right? And so I think that's, you know, we can do all of our outreach and efforts to, you know, get the word out. But sometimes, you know, it's only because my mom knew about this program or, you know, a friend at my high school. And so it's really important, you know, students are looking to the Perot Museum because they're interested in these career paths. And we have that available to them, but getting that reach out there. And so just offering that for the team. If you have teens interested in that path, let's connect and talk about that too for career this summer.
We offer something very similar, especially throughout the summer, but we do it throughout the school year. But we do bring in industry leaders, and they run full curriculums with our youth. So we've been doing, like, our summer program starts next week. We start cosmetology, we start barbicide, we do STEM, we do engineering, we even do architecture. There's scholarships attached to each of those programs for those kids to be able to use to go into school, but they don't have to use it for that field. A lot of restrictions get attached to those scholarships where if I'm providing you money and you're doing an engineering program, you have to have an engineering major. We're not providing that. So what we're doing is giving you the dollars. You can still go into school, but we want you to explore all of these different career opportunities. Figure out if it's something that you like. You can do it for 4 years and at least earn that money that gets you into school for you to pay for whatever you figure out your passion is. And so something very similar, like we're doing the soft skills, we do interviewing. Our kids are going to conferences. I mean, I know you guys too as well, like our Keystone Conference, which are leadership conferences. They're going and they're spending time with 2,000 other teenagers to learn how to build that network. How do I go in? How do I introduce myself? How do I create, you know, what is my vision for myself? What's my value? Who am I? And how do I convey that to other people? And so we're teaching them those skills so that they see the importance in themselves. But how do I put myself out there and give someone a 2-minute elevator speech on who I am? You know, people have to be able to know me. They got to get to know me quickly. And if they don't get those, you know, they're not learning that at home. They're not learning how to, you know, go up and introduce yourself. It's okay. Don't be scared. Tell them who you are. Tell them where you come from. Tell them what your plan is. Because you don't know that person that you might be talking to is a person that's going to open that door for you. And so we encourage and we teach them to do that every step of the way.
We still have our summer learning focus at the GEMS camp, which is, you know, been our flagship program. We actually just won the presidential award from NSF and under President Biden's administration back in January. And our key capstone and how we do it is really looking at effective mentorship, industry perspective, but also near peer mentorship. So if you're a middle school girl, we focus on middle school STEM identity development, girl identity development at that age, and really try to apply more research principles in how to close those learning gaps. Building identity, math identity is huge for a math teacher. And so our curriculum and our content and our approach to learning math and teaching math within our programs is the concept itself around patterns and functions, which is the foundation of any math. But then also how to develop girls' positive narratives and their math efficacy. So their ability to believe that I can do this specific math task, and their ability to believe that I am a math or science abled person. So I place a lot of eggs in that basket. Like, we're teaching the content. You're going to get the algebra one. We look at the TEKS. We see where they're low performing. We expose them to that in the summer. But there's this whole other parallel, pillar that is equally important, which is how do I identify with this subject? How do I see myself with this subject? And how can I apply these principles? This summer, we're looking at cybersecurity. And it was a challenge to be able to find mathematics and cybersecurity in terms of the traditional way that math is presented. And so we relied a lot on industry professionals to help us develop the content. We looked at the TEKS, and I hired some teachers, and we worked together as a team. And then we brought on a few students to help us say, is this meaningful? Is this interesting? Is this relevant at all? Is this something y'all want to do this summer? And I feel like that so far, it's day 2 of camp, but so far it's going pretty well. Lida Hill gave us some money to develop this content and to make it more interactive. And I do believe, like, going forward, these are the types of things we're going to have to do to be able to address learning gaps, is to have more of these collaborative teams. But then also the AI is so powerful. Oh my gosh. I've been Gemini, Hey Gen AI, like, I've been just learning so much with working on this team, and what we've been able to produce from a content is, I think, far better than what we could have done as just our teacher teams. Like, it's pretty cool. So we're just trying to fill out all the stops, work more collaboratively, look at the standards to see what still needs to be addressed, but build the identity and the efficacy as well. Like, we can't just ignore that.
And I think someone over here wanted to say something. Did you?
No, I was just thinking more about like everything at Jubilee. One of the things we had to do is take a step back into middle school. And a lot of the high school decisions have to be taken in 8th grade. So we had to go back to our 8th graders, or really our entire middle school population. We how are we helping you prep for high school? And it's a new program that we're trying to gear it to this year as we're going into the school year. But it's really, I can see their frustration. And they're like, how do we do it? So it's great hearing all these wonderful opportunities. I'll definitely touch base with a couple of y'all to connect my kids out there and, help them see that they're not the only ones going through this, because sometimes they feel like they are. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, and our staff at Communities and Schools of Tarrant County, we are, full-time on a school campus, so working to be like that caring adult on that school campus that is connecting with students that don't have the resources, and helping to bridge that gap. So whether that's bringing in outside community partners to help with something that they're interested in, or even if that's like helping the relationship with the parent in the school so that they can get involved and invested in their kids' education, so that they can help. Once they have the knowledge, they can kind of help their student get there. Because again, you don't know what you don't know. And if that's not something you've experienced, it's really difficult, like, we've all mentioned, to lead your kid through that if you've not been through it. So I think that's kind of where we're coming in, full time on a campus to be able to kind of do some of that.
Yeah. And then again, perfect little bridge here. So yeah, like, I know you are always on campus. Anybody else that has a specific partnership with the school or district where you've seen a program really impact college readiness with students?
So our Upward Bound program is in Fort Worth ISD. And say we are on campus, we are the ones in the Ghost Centers operating full out support services for every youth that decides they want to come in and sign up. So for us, we work really well with the district, but also the school, and making sure the schools that we're in are communicating that information out, not just to the kids, but to the parents. Because sometimes it might be that parent push that's like, hey, I got an email that says this is here. I need you to go check this out. Yep. And so for us, that's been, substantial to the growth that we've been able to have in these programs. The other thing is, like, for us, our campuses that do not have that, or that we're not able to be in for this program, It's the relationships at the schools with the teachers. So we take time, we spend time in the school. So our staff, my team is required to be in the school during the school year at least 3 days a week. My directors, my full-time staff, at least 3 days a week, you should be in a classroom getting to know your school principals, administration, and the teachers. It's the reason that we find out a lot of times, like, what it's due that they have homework, that these things are going on, and that they're having to make those 8th grade decisions, because the kids are not coming home telling parents, I just filled out my course selection for high school. Parents find out when you're picking up the schedule. And so for us, it allows us to say, hey, parents, you know, although this is coming from the school, we're here to help support. This is what's happening. Get with your kids today and find out, like, what did they select and what are they trying to choose? Because some of the parents don't even know, like, about the, you know, the early college programs or the dual pilot programs and the registrations and the applications. But we're able to partner and let that message get out as well by us, you know, assisting on campus. We're just volunteering our time. It makes the day easier for the teacher, but also it helps us connect with everyone on campus.
And that's key, having communication with the principal, the counselors. You really need that with the teachers to ensure that you can serve the kids.
Absolutely. Having teacher buy-in is super important. Yeah, their job. Yeah.
Our partnership with Young Women's Preparatory Network has been, it started out pretty transactional. You know, they send us kids and pay for their kids to come to camp, but that was kind of it. And it's really evolved, especially coming out of the pandemic, in terms of how could we work better together to support girls who want to pursue STEM pathways. One of the things that I love what they do, and to your point earlier about that alumni network, like the way they support girls through college and then after college, and like the different programs they put into place, have really helped inform me how I can make sure that the GEMS has a network as well. So like I'm learning from them. But in terms of the outcomes that I've seen through our partnership, specifically with the young women's girls, whether they're from Aladdin or Irma or some of the other schools, is that I feel like because they're getting a double dose of both entities that are girls, you know, driven, they're showing up more confident in our programs. They are turning into the interns. They are the ones who are stepping up to be the mentors. They're the ones who are coming back from college and saying, we want to now work for the GEMS camp. So that partnership has really evolved from being like a transaction to more like, okay, now they get the whole thing of girls supporting girls, women supporting women. And it's not just like this little thing you do in middle school. Like this becomes a lifestyle for you.
Well, that goes back to, I believe, your point that these problems cannot be solved by one entity alone.
Yeah.
This is definitely a community responsibility. Partnerships are so important. Optimizing what everybody's doing by working together, and that's why we're so excited to be working with you guys too. So the next question, this is a big one, and some of you it may not be impacting as much as others, but how are budget cuts impacting you?
We have a few school closures that'll happen this year that'll affect some of our students. And so right now those kids will all be transitioning into new schools. We do have licensed counselors on site. And so that's one of the things for us is like making sure those counselors are at the clubs that are going to be affected that first week, because those kids are going into schools like everything's going to be new to them. And so we want to make sure that they have that support where they have someone to talk to, whether it's in a small group setting or if it's an individual that's like, all of my friends ended up here and I'm here alone. We want to make sure that they know that like there's someone who can talk to, and there's a group of kids that are all going through the same thing. You're just all with different souls. Right. So that's some of the things that we're doing for that. And then obviously the federal, like the cuts, we're just kind of waiting like everybody else to kind of see how it could affect some of our internal programs that we offer. But we're just being optimistic at this point, and we're going to operate as usual until someone tells us something different.
We had applied for a National Science Foundation grant in partnership with the University of Texas at Austin, their Texas Advanced Computing Center, which is huge because it's all about like nanotech and quantum and like some of the things that are really they might not be relevant to the public right now, but they are very relevant, you know, to our lives and our existence as human beings. And it was a 5-year grant. It was specifically around informal learning, specifically around getting kids from certain backgrounds and things like that. We spent probably a year working on that application. And it was going to be an all-girls camp, 5 years, longitudinal data. I mean, it was a really solid thing that we were trying to do. And literally just got nowhere immediately. And like maybe 2 weeks after it was submitted in January. And it's things like that, you know, I'm like, I don't even know how we're supposed to collect research data to be able to validate the work that we're trying to do.
Also be coming from the fundraising aspect of things too, knowing that right. So for CIS Dallas, we work with schools, obviously, on a braided model so that to have that buy-in from school leadership and principals and teachers to say, hey, we want you to work in our schools. We'll sign a contract and pay a certain amount. And then as an organization, we fundraise the rest of that to cover the entire contract to have a coordinator support a maximum of 100 students in that school. Well, as we all know, schools are losing funds, so they're not able to work with us on that contract and partnership. So that's less students that we're able to impact and support their attendance, behavior, and academics. And more importantly, as we all mentioned, their mental health, right? So as we, in the 23-24 school year, we supported 67,000 students across all of our schools with ABA. And so if we're in less schools, then that number is going to decrease drastically. And with the number of individualized case management we support, it's just over 9,000 students that receive that one-on-one attention that we all desire and know that students need. Well, once again, the less schools that we're in, the less students that we're able to serve that one-on-one connection with, to work with their parents, to work with their families, to say, what do you need at home and what can we support? How can we support your student in the school? Because we all know, and it was mentioned earlier, that school staff, they're already overwhelmed, and let alone counselors, knowing that a lot of those positions were also cut due to funding. Well, who now is going to tend to the child or students or youth's need outside of just the teacher? So now we're trying to figure out other ways and how can we support not only those teachers in those spaces, not only the school leadership going through the drastic changes that's happening to their districts and schools, but now we have to figure out how we support ourselves and the families who are simply just trying to support this student get to the next grade or get to the next level in their academic career. And I think that we can all say budgets are definitely affecting us in just more than one way, but knowing that we're all here for the common purpose of supporting tomorrow's leaders, it's becoming a little bit more difficult just to try to support them in any way. So from the fundraising side of things, as we all know, the diversification of funding is always pivotal, but when you're not having the institutions that support these students support you, let alone support them, it's kind of a daunting and tiresome wheelhouse in which we're in. And so hopefully, under these circumstances, it's, to me, beginning to feel like the pandemic once again. Hoping that philanthropy, hoping that corporate partners and industry leaders can once again say, hey, what can we do to help as UWorld Cares and as you all are doing here? But it's going to be also the foundations that we're going to be leaning on, public, private, family, to say, you all know what times we're in. Hopefully we can supply the data if you give us the opportunity to show and prove how much it's really needed and necessary in these spaces. So once again, from the fundraising side, it's hard to see our programs and our operations take the hit that they are, and knowing that once again, we have to lean on the rest of our communities who may not see it face to face to say, hey, we need your help once again by volunteering at this event or offering in-kind donations or simply just showing up. That means the mountains, it means the world to us as individuals and philanthropic people, but more importantly to the youth and students that we're serving, to see that somebody that I don't know even cares about me and what I'm going through and wants to see a sunnier day, a better day for me. So once again, this is going to be a point of our lives and our careers where we have to pull together in order to see it through.
Yeah. And the other thing with that, with fundraising, is the people, like I said, we haven't lost federal funding, but bigger organizations, and like you guys are CIS, you're bigger. You guys are, where is it? It's Boys and Girls Club. You know, you guys are bigger. When you guys lose funding, then people know those names, and they're not as likely to know a VMYDF. And so the funding goes there. So then we compete. We're forced to compete against each other, for the same funds because the pot isn't getting any bigger. So, when you guys said earlier, like, we've expanded this year, we plan to expand next year. I mean, I'm not about like, okay, well, that nonprofit, let's get rid of them. So I'm grateful for you guys, like, to be able to expand because we need each other. I don't think any of us in here think, I don't need them. I can go on about my business. I mean, we need each other. When a nonprofit goes away, that's painful for all of us.
Thanks. I felt it all. Yeah. Felt it all.
We operate in the cost share model as well in Tarrant County, and we've had school districts that have come to us and said, hey, we're not able to pay our portion. We're not going to have you return for this coming school year. And it's just heartbreaking to know like those students aren't going to receive those services anymore. That it is strictly a budget thing if they're trying to decide, hey, we need to keep our teachers. So we have to put that money, any money that we have towards raising their salaries or like incentive programs to hire better teachers, and which we also need, so it's like, I hate that the districts are even in the position where they're having to pull from over here in order to support over here. And so we're definitely seeing the effects of those cuts for sure.
I don't want to get into anybody's lunch plans, so we are at time, but I do want to thank you all very, very much for a very informative and positive conversation. I learned a lot. I hope you all learned from each other. That was really interesting and very inspiring. I also want to share with you that if you've been involved with us in the past, you know that we provide all of our UWorld Cares partners with free access to our products for the students that you serve. So we have all of these AP courses as well as ACT and SAT courses that we will provide to you. It is a year license for all of them. I also wanted to mention as well, I know we've done this with a few of you. I know communities and schools we did this with, but we have done career path panels in the past that we would be happy to do with you all. You heard we serve a lot of different industries within this company. So we have people in all fields of STEM, STEAM. We have artists, writers, marketing, engineers. We have the legal, nursing, medical, CPA, CFA, all of it, teachers. So we are happy to put together career panels that we could do with your students, with your schools that you work with. We also I have cards, or I can put my email up. We did do a set of career path, and I know you invited the Jumps Camp students to it. We did a STEAM panel that was recorded, and we've also done career and college path Q&As with our lawyers, doctors, nurses, engineers, accountants, and finance folks. That is all recorded that you could share with your students. So I'll write my email address up there if you want access to that. But I just want to thank you all very much for coming today and participating, and congratulations again on your grant. And I personally wish you all the very best and good luck in your endeavors. I know you have a lot of stuff on your shoulders, and I appreciate all the work that you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.